Hi, everyone. Hey, welcome back to our weekly book study. It's good to see everyone. Come on in the room. Get your favorite seat. Everyone gets their favorite seat on this book study. We don't have any preferences. You get to be in the front row. I love that. Welcome back. And we're looking this week at chapter 14. Suffering is our own activity. And this is, just sort of be open to this idea. Just be in that, what Rupert will refer several times in this chapter. Just be in that open awareness as we delve into this chapter. This is the activity of the personal self and why or how suffering occurs. It's my honor, and I'm grateful to have Susan Telford as a co-host this week. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Bill. Hi, everyone.
And most of you know that Susan, I mean, Susan is part of the Teachers of God Foundation. She's the manager and really the support for anyone that's in Evolve or the activities that happen through Evolve, the book study in there, and the gatherings, the weekly gatherings. And she is the host of that. And I appreciate you for that, Susan. And over the years, we've become really good friends. And we've had a few kind of like these a few times, years maybe a couple years back, and I'm glad that's over. Suffering follows that activity. No matter, even if you're trying to, even if you're presenting truth, you can fall into that state of conflict. But we're not doing it anymore. I'm grateful for that. And I want to read something from Rick West. He's not here today. He sent an email in. He's been a constant supporter of this group, the book study. He says, Bill, I think the real value of these meetings is not the talking about the truth, which is often interesting but rarely liberating. Rather, it's the presence of the truth itself that actually reveals and liberates. Big difference. Fortunately, yourself, Jenny, Beal, Susan, Rosalind, and others emanate this presence, the real teacher teaching. Regrettably, I may not be able to attend tomorrow's meeting, but I'll certainly catch it on YouTube. Thank you. And I don't know if Rick is even here, but anyway, that was the beautiful email from you, Rick. Thank you. And Susan, welcome to our week 14. We only have 6 left.
Yes, yes. And this is, as we were saying, this is quite a long chapter, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And I just felt that was a good intro. I'll try not to hold it up this week so we can get through the whole thing. Where would you like to start, Susan, on this first page of chapter 14? What do you want to look at? Page
Well, I
107.
think, first of all, the very title of it, Suffering is Our Own Activity. At first blush, we might think, well, no, it's not. We suffer because of things that happen. So the title immediately piques the interest. And then the first paragraph, where he says, the density of the conditioned layer of likes and dislikes that live in the recesses of our mind and the frequency with which it is provoked determines the extent to which seeking and resisting arise within us and veil our innate happiness. And I thought, to what extent are we aware of all of those layers, conditioned layers of likes and dislikes? It's not immediately obvious. It's something that, that becomes obvious as we continue on the path. But I just thought that was a good question to ask ourselves, to what extent are we aware the conditioned layers.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, this is new to a lot of people that have not been on the path, but the word triggers, you get a trigger or you get a reaction, and it can be strong or it can be subtle. And that is the provoking of identity. That's the provoking of that layer that is hidden, and we often just react and run, just bulldoze right through it until we have I would say, enhanced alertness and sensitivity shows up, and we begin to see those things that I'm going to call them gremlins, or those things that Rupert refers to that are in the at the bottom of the barrel, or the bottom of the whatever. But yeah, I like that quote from Anandamaya Ma, also, that you mentioned, that I mean, from the suffering is our own activity. Anandamaya says, find the one everywhere and in everything, and there will be an end to pain and suffering. So find this awareness, find the essential self, find that one. And that's the thing I love mostly about Rupert's teaching, is that he always takes, he doesn't linger in the story, he doesn't linger in the suffering or the symptom. He goes right directly to find the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
What else do you want to look at here on page 107?
He talks of a kind of spectrum, doesn't he? If the filter is relatively transparent, a degree of happiness will percolate into our experience, just as sunlight filters into the room through a fine muslin curtain. Right up to, it can be like a heavy curtain, which he says would equate to the experience of depression. So yeah, I hadn't really thought of it like that, that to the extent to which the conditioning blocks our perception is the extent to which we are able to access our innate happiness. And I think, it's just worth emphasizing, the whole book's about this, but it's worth emphasizing over and over again, it's innate peace and happiness. It's already there. It's just masked by, to whatever degree our conditioning. And, he's talking about the filter of likes and dislikes. And that's kind of it, isn't it? When it really comes down to it, it's the extent to which we can just accept what is, just be absolutely present with what is. Because when we can't do that, oh, there you go, there's one of your conditioned likes and dislikes.
Yeah. And I mean, conditioned likes and dislikes is basically duality.
Yeah.
It's rights and wrongs. And I would, this is a guess, and I'm not throwing stones at anybody here, but I'll bet you everyone has preferences here. I do. I see them, and it's if there's a deeper interest, it suffering is stronger. It's a more dense experience that it looks like Bill is having. It looks like Bill is having this deeper experience, and it's really I am has lost itself in the experience.
Yeah, because who are the likes and dislikes arising for? It's the belief in yourself as a separate somebody with those preferences. Now, I don't actually think it's the preferences as such, but it's because we have preferences, don't we? But it's are you, to what extent are you upset if your preferences are not met? I think
Yes.
there's a distinction there, isn't there?
Yes.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I might want a cup of coffee rather than a cup of tea, but I'm not going to be upset if I get tea. You know,
Well,
it's when you're really wedded to, it has to be this because I'm this kind of person. You know, I never drink tea.
right. Yeah. And, you know, I think Rupert covers this in this chapter because it really, it becomes something that just is, you can take it or leave it. You're ambivalent to the real choice. Do you want this or this? Well, I'd rather have this, but I'm okay with either one. And there's no attachment. And so then the preference is really it's a flow. It's a flowing event instead of coming from the false self or the false identity. Yeah. There was a question Andrew has at 1209. What is the soul? My understanding is the soul is where we have our mind patterns, tendencies of the personality. Some say the personality is the karma of the soul. What do you think about the soul and likes and dislikes? Well, I would, you know, since we're on the likes and dislikes, I would just say it's duality, what Rupert just referred to here. But as far as the soul, to me, the soul is a religious term for trying to identify with the mystical or the religious terminology that we've heard about. The soul, to me, is just a name that's given to the activity of consciousness. That's what I think. What do you think, Susan?
To be honest, I don't know. I don't know. I mean,
good answer.
People use the word soul in different contexts, and it's not a word that I particularly use or even think about all that much. So,
well, it doesn't really matter, really, because what is the soul doesn't matter. It really matters to understand the self realization or to know the self awareness and to stay in that place and letting all of these named things, let them just be what they are. It's not really important to know what the soul is.
yeah.
I mean, I don't mean to cast dispersions to your question, Andrew, but it's not important. The identity, what the soul is a religious term that the mind wants to know about it.
Yeah.
So let's keep going on 107.
I like the sentence in the third paragraph where he says, in the absence of any filter of likes and dislikes and the activity of seeking and resisting that accompanies it, the foreground of experience will be pervaded by the happiness that is the nature of its background, just as a room without curtains is filled with light. And I thought, you know, that really points to the fact that this is not a doing. It's not something we do. It's something that we stop doing. You know, when we stop resisting what is, when we stop insisting on our likes and dislikes. And as you said, Bill, just flow with what's happening. Then happiness emerges from the background.
Yeah.
That's just so liberating. Just that one sentence, that's it really, isn't it? It's everything's there.
Yes. And that's what reveals itself gradually. It reveals itself as itself, and we can't even put a time stamp on when the light reveals, when it becomes more constant. There's 3 cues there for Lindsay. Hi, Lindsay.
Re-preferences. If I'm offered tea but don't like the taste of coffee either, would it be ambivalent to be satisfied, happy with either but not drink it, or neither?
Yes. Yes, it would be. It would be totally. I mean, I do that all the time. I'm all the time. Which do you want? Do you want ice cream or pie? I don't care. Both are great. Or do you want ice cream, pie, or asparagus? Well, I'll probably have ice cream or pie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
funny. Okay. Anything else on 107?
Well, just that last paragraph, which just speaks to what we've said, that peace and joy is always there. I just think that cannot be emphasized enough, that the peace and joy is here right now. It's covered up often by lots of other stuff, but it's here. It's not somewhere in the future, or, when we get really good at meditation, or we've read all the books, or we've attended all the classes. It's here now. It is our very nature simply waiting to be liberated. It is we who close ourselves off from it. Happiness is never given or withheld by circumstances. I mean, take that sentence in. Happiness is never given or withheld by circumstances. It's nothing to do with circumstances. It's solely the outcome of our inner disposition, and we are free at every moment to determine this.
Yeah. Yes. And
really good
and
news.
it's as available and present as the awareness of this book study, of this experience right here. That it's the essence. It's like the gateway that's always here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. And Shelley said, when questions arise, I ask on whose behalf is this question arising? No longer desire the answer. Right.
Yeah, Noni had asked a question. It still feels challenging to not have preference in certain things. For example, getting custody of your children in divorce. It's hard to be unattached in such matters. And Jenny replied, thank you, Jenny, for your reply. Getting custody of your children is an important preference. It's natural and an impersonal desire for a mother. As Susan said, and Francis said the same, it's not preferences that are the problem. You just do your best with the help of the lawyers. If you fail, then you just need to accept that as the will of consciousness or God. Yeah, I think that's such a great point that Jenny made. It's an impersonal desire for a mother. It's not, oh, my desire is to get custody of my children. It's an impersonal, almost universal desire. For a mom.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it could be for a dad too, I think.
Of course, but that was just a question. Yeah.
Yep.
It's
that innate role. It's that innate role, or that innate connection that mostly is the pull of love to care for this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. I can speak about that I was a single parent from 2 years. My oldest daughter was 2 when I was given custody of her, until I remarried when she was 7. And I felt like I was the mother. It comes with a feeling, and a protector. And it wasn't a male feeling,
isn't it? It's the same instinct that animals have, isn't it? It's an instinctual thing.
Yeah. There's a question at the top of 108. What is it that makes up this layer of likes and dislikes, and what causes it to arise? And what did you pull out of that question?
Well, his assertion right at the beginning that it's the natural condition of awareness to be open without resistance. And I think this is the key point, isn't it? That if we are if we are fully identified as our natural state of awareness, then there is no resistance. There's no resistance to anything. We can be with whatever arises, but it's the resisting. And where does the resisting come from? It comes from all of those conditioned likes and dislikes on behalf of a so-called separate self that we take ourselves to be. So it's really just the identification. Are we identified as a separate self, or are we identified with our true nature as awareness? And we know when we're identified as awareness because we don't resist, we're unaffected. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I would, for that first chapter where that first paragraph where he says the natural condition of awareness is to be open without resistance to all experience. I just wrote in the margin, life happens. This is where life just happens. And oh yeah, that's happening. Yeah, that's happening. And
it's such an easy way as well to see to what extent you are still identified with the conditioned self, because in our everyday lives we can easily tell if we're resisting things, or whether we're, things are just flowing and we're just flowing with them. It's really easy to tell that, isn't it, if we're honest with ourselves. And then,
yeah,
then we uncover these layers. We see, this is what I'm still believing. I'm still believing I'm a separate somebody who has to have things this way.
yeah. And for a while, I mean, as a course student, I felt and I saw a lot of times when people are having these experiences and they're not established in their understanding and experience of awareness, they judge themselves for being attracted to the experience, and that can be that's a trap. It's not necessary, that because the personal self is still going to have activity, and it's going to look like it makes mistakes. And it's, how many times have you heard or seen people write, I don't understand why I don't stay in alignment. My peace is disturbed. And they judge and blame, and they make themselves guilty for the normal experience of the body mind, because they haven't given themselves enough time to gradually be established in awareness, or as I am.
Yeah. I think one of the things that happens is when you have a glimpse of your true nature, you become much more sensitive to the activity of the conditioned mind. Things that you wouldn't have noticed before, suddenly you notice,
Yeah.
because they're coming up to be released. And as you said, often people think, "Oh, I must be doing something wrong," because
Mm-hmm.
they're feeling. And it's quite comforting, I feel, to know that this is part of the process, and
Right.
to see to what extent we want to still hold on. So I think
Yeah.
certainly what's happened for me is things come up, and then I notice them pretty quickly now, whereas before I wouldn't have noticed at all, or I might have noticed but I'd not wanted to let go of something,
Mm-hmm.
still kind of grasping onto it. The whole process seems quicker now of noticing, and I don't, I know that I'm thinking or feeling that on behalf of the Susan character, and I don't want to perpetuate that, so it's easy to let go.
Yeah.
Easier, maybe say.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Melanie, you put your email address in the chat. Do you want all of us to email you? Is is that a mistake? I don't understand that. Okay. Let's keep going. And Melanie, you can let us know if we're supposed to email you for something. I think maybe you had it in, maybe you copy and pasted it by mistake into the chat. Not
I
sure.
think that's just her. It's how she's showing up on Zoom. I think it's our Zoom name, maybe.
Really?
Yeah, because the in blue at the above the comments is how we're showing up on the screen.
Oh, no kidding. Okay. I haven't seen that before. Um, so what else on page 108?
Well, yeah, so he's talking as well about the body, which I think is really important here too. So he's saying that, some experiences just pass straight through, but there are some experiences which do not pass unimpeded through awareness, but are met with either resistance or the desire to hold on to them. And then he says, couple of paragraphs down, if this conflict is subsequently resolved, the energy induced by it will dissipate and no trace will remain. But if the conflict remains unresolved, it will be stored not only in the deeper layers of the mind, but as a corresponding layer of tension in the body. And so the process of letting go of that involves some work in the body as well, which, that's certainly something I've come to very late in my spiritual path, to include the body. And obviously Rupert's wife Ellen, her whole work is about the awakening body, releasing these tensions and patterns that have been built up in the body by resistance.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's interesting how thoughts or beliefs, reactions, and stored, I would just call it energy. It can impregnate itself into the body mind, and I don't know how that works, but it also, energetically it can store itself in inanimate objects.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy, but I'm glad to see that Rupert, when he speaks to this, like in that third paragraph down, starts with each time we resist an experience that we're facing, hold on to an experience that is passing, or seek an experience that is absent, we are in opposition to our current situation. So as soon as we're looking for another option, alternative, we're not welcoming.
Yeah, and we're creating a conflict, not just in our mind, but that also has implications in our body. And he says in the paragraph after that one, the residue of innumerable such unresolved conflicts and tensions lies imprinted in our minds and bodies. Together, these constitute the layer of likes and dislikes. So they're not just, kind of in our body, but they actually make up that filter of likes and dislikes through which we see the world, and because of which we're unable to just accept everything as it's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if something happens very close to us,
Mm-hmm.
and we or someone we love or care about was hurt by it. That leaves a deeper experience that is, it will become reactionary. In a
And I
much
think,
quicker way, and until it's healed of its energy. I guess the closer it gets, you go, oh, wait a minute, that happened to me once before. I'm not letting that happen again. That's that energy.
yeah. And I think as well, depending on the extent to which you have these imprints, it can manifest in the body as illness. Certain patterns of behaving. I know in my own life, that belief that I had to try really hard in order to be loved. I wasn't just loved for myself. I had to try really hard. Directly caused the burnout that I had, because I pushed myself beyond the point of exhaustion, still trying to be good. So I think it can manifest as illness, which turns out to be
Yeah.
grace. Yeah.
Moving to page 109. You want to move to 109?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the first three paragraphs at the top of 109 is really, an invitation really for us to really start to notice our own patterns. If we experience anything in life that corresponds to any aspect of this content, I mean, we all know something can happen. And some of us might have a huge reaction and other people are just, oh, well. And it's because it hits your own stuff and you have a big reaction. And he says, if we find ourselves reacting disproportionately to an experience, we can be certain that the residual layer of subliminal feelings has been activated and is making itself known. So, I think it's part of the path to notice this stuff, to notice, when are you having a disproportionate reaction? What is the belief that's under that? Instead of just going, oh yeah, that's just on behalf of the separate self, move on. If it keeps happening and happening and happening, then there's some belief there that needs to be to be brought up to the light, to be acknowledged and felt. The feelings of it need to be felt.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea that you just expressed. That it needs to be felt. It needs to be seen as felt, because the feeling of it could be an attachment to the emotion.
But do you not think, though, that in the willingness to actually feel it for the purpose of healing, that there isn't an attachment then? If things are stuck in the body, if there's repressed emotion in the body, or patterns that have been repressed, feeling it for the purposes of healing kind of gets it out, discharges it from.
Well, I think the invitation of welcoming is that, and I think that invitation is also inviting the feeling, and then, but I don't think you stop there. I think there becomes a stepping back, as the awareness of the feeling, even that is the awareness that is untouched by the feeling. So I feel that there's another stepping back that even occurs.
Yeah, and
that's just the sense that I have.
Yeah, I think you're right, and he addresses that after this next question, because the question is essentially saying, well, if we've got all these buried emotions and residual energies, are we just doomed to act them out and live out their consequences? Or is it enough to abide as the presence of awareness in the face of them? Or is it necessary to become conscious of them before we're able to get rid of them? And he makes a really interesting point here. The attempt to get rid of these deep-seated habits and tendencies is itself one such habit. Thus, attempting to get rid of itself is one of the subtler ways that the apparently separate self perpetuates itself. And that's quite subtle, really. Yeah. Because on one hand, we want to allow the feelings to be discharged and to pass, but at the same time, why? Are we doing it because I want to feel better? And then that just perpetuates that sense of separate self, doesn't it? The separate Susan wants to be a happier separate Susan. So it is subtle, isn't it? It's subtle.
Yeah. That's where, for course students, you can really be trapped living in the happy dream. It's kind of like it's almost what you just said. Mm-hmm. Let's see, the very last paragraph says, organisms that live at the bottom of a well rarely see the light of day and thus remain dormant. However, once a day at midday, the light of the sun shines directly into the shaft of the well, and the creatures at the bottom wake up and begin to make their way to the surface. Similarly, the subliminal layer of thoughts and feelings lies below the threshold of the waking state mind and is not available to it under normal circumstances. In most cases, these feelings are too painful to face. And so we develop strategies to repress or avoid them. In this way, their continued existence below the surface of a waking state mind remains assured, and they continue to exert their subliminal and disruptive influence in our lives. They remain at the bottom of the well, so to speak, often making themselves known in our dreams or in our outbursts of emotional reactivity or destructive behavior in the waking state. In fact, the more they are ignored or repressed, the more they tend to escalate in intensity as they clamor for our attention.
Mhm. Yeah. And that's why I'm saying that they need to be given space. I think on the page before, he says exactly how that's done. I love it when Rupert says all that is required. All that is required is to be knowingly the aware openness within which this knot of tension is appearing and with which it is known. Ultimately, the feeling is made of the very awareness within which it appears, just as all waves and currents are made of the ocean. So that's the way to be with it, isn't it? It's not to repress it, not to deny it, but that's the way to be with it, which I think that's probably what you were saying, Bill, wasn't it? And to the point where you read about, the feelings being too painful to face, and so we develop strategies to repress or avoid them. I think we don't just develop strategies, and we also, that's what our personality often is. We construct that persona I'm going to hide behind my mask so that I'm this is my defense, so that nobody can touch these emotions, that these really painful things inside me. And then that becomes the whole way that we meet the world.
Yes. And
Melanie has her hand up.
Melanie? Oh, Melanie, would you like to come on? Hi, Melanie. Where'd you go?
Hi there. Hello.
Hi.
There we go.
Welcome.
Hi. Sorry about the email. I don't know why that's coming up. I'm on a different device.
No worries.
If you go in your Zoom settings, you'll be able to change it back to your name.
That's funny.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Melanie.
I wanted to but I wanted to say something to this conversation about when emotional residue arises, because I think the temptation to spiritual bypass is so strong. And I want to really kind of reiterate what Susan was saying about allowing it, the feeling itself, to allow it to be present in the body. As it is. It takes huge courage to sit in the hot seat with whatever we're feeling and the desire to get rid of it quickly or sort it or solve it. There's something very precious there, Bill, that we often jump over in our desire for transcendence. And the language of transcendence can sometimes make us feel guilty, as you said, about whatever's flowing through, because it might be ugly or old. Oh my gosh, am I feeling this again? But it's such precious human experiences. And to honor that. So I just wanted to say, because for me, that's where you can hear it in my voice. It's so important in spiritual growth that we allow our humanity. This human life, which is so precious. Yeah, so I just want to say that.
I agree with that. I mean, I agree with letting the experience, don't impede it, don't spiritually bypass it. And there's there's a fine line between uh, 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 spiritually, what I call spiritually bypassing is people that just ignore it or set it aside and say, oh, that's just an illusion, those kinds of things. And welcoming, in my mind, avoids the temptation to spiritually bypass. Welcoming is and loving, no matter what it is, allowing the experience to be experienced. And I think in the welcoming, the awareness will lead the way. Awareness will lead the way to experience the experience and fully experience it, and at the same time not be attached to the experience. And I can't explain what that is. It's because
it's subtle. I hear you. It is very subtle. Absolutely. No, I'm with you on that. And there's something about it. It's with us until it's not. It's present until it's not.
Yes.
It flows in its own way, in its own time. Yeah.
I had this same conversation with Rupert. I had the same conversation with Rupert just about 10 days ago in the broadcast that will be on the awareness podcast for October. He said the same thing. Bill, I know you're not saying this. And he came in and he sort of he made sure that the audience wasn't drawn off experiencing the experience. So I have a way of languaging it. It's not a shortcut. No.
Yeah. Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Melanie.
Okay. Let's see. Where are we, Susan?
I just wanted to point to where we are in the Kindle. Somebody was asking what page we were on. I was looking at.
Okay. Hi, William Price. Good to see you. Jenny Beal says the Serenity Prayer is just common sense. If we don't accept things we can't change, we will just suffer. We will be miserable, and maybe I will adversely affect physical health too. Yes, it's just a common sense idea, the Serenity Prayer. Yes. Catherine says, when you can hold your resistance with love, you can be with it, like holding a crying child in your arms. Yes. Yes. Hi, Yada. It's good to see you. Can't miss that. Yada said something about Ram Dass and something
about
sexual. What was
Horny
that?
Celibate. Yeah, I want to know more. That caught my attention.
Yada says Ram Dass called this the Horny Celibate.
The Horny Celibate syndrome. What does that mean, Lara?
Yada, what are you talking about? In his memoirs and talks. Funny.
I think we're on page 153, 154 on the Kindle, round about there.
Oh, there's Yada. She was answering our comment. The Horny Celibate. What are you talking about, girl?
I want to know.
Okay, so how are you guys? And love you.
Good, love you too.
So
I've not heard this one.
Yeah, Ram Dass is one of my gurus, right? He used to be a teacher in the mainstream. You guys know who Ram Dass is, but whoever.
Yeah, we know who he is.
Okay, so when he describes when he was in India, and he had, homosexual tendencies and things like that, and he had a lot of sexual things going on in his life through his spiritual awakening. And he explained that when you are called to do something, even if you're in a celibate situation, right? So how do you deal with horniness? So the horny celibate is that person that goes to the mountain to become, enlightened, but inside is constantly horny because he becomes a horny celibate instead of letting that feeling, which whatever it is, it's more, I think I wanted to bring that up because it can be with anything, with smoking, with drinking, with anything that's one of our hang-ups. If we become spiritual, all of a sudden we stop drinking, we stop doing things, but then we're constantly wanting to have that drink. I mean, that's not working. I mean, let's approach that first. And so that's what I meant to say. I know where you guys are going at what you're getting at, because sometimes the feeling has to come just through and let it pass, like Bill says, and sometimes you have to address it so that you don't become the horny celibate.
Good one. Well, those two words caught everyone's attention.
I love
Good one.
Ramdas. I love him.
He was awesome. Yeah. Awesome guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. A real pioneer. Yes. Thank you, Yada. It's good to see you. Where are we? We're on page 109.
110, I think we're on now,
Oh,
Bill.
110. Okay. 110. That one got me all flustered. I'm turning red. Funny. Actually, that's a pretty powerful metaphor when you think about it. Yeah, really good.
Yep.
Okay, on page 110.
Yeah, so third paragraph, he says, when we abide as the resistanceless presence of awareness, however, we no longer have a negative or repressive attitude towards such feelings, and they're allowed to resurface. They're allowed to surface. The deep-seated tendencies that lie in the unconscious, the recesses of the mind that are not accessible to the waking state, begin to rise. This attitude of allowing or welcoming is itself both the exposing and the dissolving of these subliminal tendencies. So it's just another aspect of allowing things just to be as they are, isn't it?
Yeah.
And these things are coming up. We just, allow it to be there until it dissipates.
Right. And I love the word abiding. When we abide as the resistanceless presence of awareness, we're just totally abiding awareness. We're available. We're in that open space of presence, and in my mind, that's when you're established there, and you bring all of those horny, celibate, conflict, any kind of thing that's an upset to you at any level, bring it into that space and love it and welcome it. And I think that's the description that's given here in this paragraph you just read.
Yeah. And then, as the more and more we do that, fewer and fewer circumstances in our life retain the power to provoke the activity of seeking and resisting. And that's so true. We start to notice that situations that would have triggered us big time just don't have the power to do it anymore. And there's this kind of feeling of, well, I didn't really it wasn't me that did that. It wasn't me that did self-development work. And it's just some process that seems to unfold.
Yeah.
We begin to find ourselves at peace and fulfilled in circumstances that would previously have been a source of suffering and conflict. We are becoming established in the peace of our true nature. And it's such a blessing when you feel that, when you think, oh my goodness, I actually know that. I'm beginning more and more to have a direct experience of that.
Yeah. So if you're watching and you're not having that experience, don't beat yourself up, and just keep staying in the game of just being interested in these matters, and then becoming established happens. All of a sudden, it's like, and I've said this a couple of times in different ways, but it's like that idea that Rupert's used as an example, that when you have a headache and 6 hours later that headache is gone, you don't know when it went. Well, the awakening, being established in self-awareness, is just like that. All of a sudden, it's just there. as your experience.
Yeah. And, you know, if you're not having that experience, then you have abundant knowledge in your own life of what's keeping you from that. And that's the material. And Jenny just wrote, Rupert recommends not trying to root out underlying connections, just deal with the feeling that is present now, recognizing that the feeling consists of both a thought and a bodily sensation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really important, because when you go on a witch hunt, or you go into an idea that what's making this happen? Why does this keep happening? It's going on a search that you'll never find.
Yeah, because the words that you didn't say there is, why is this happening to me? And that's the crucial part, isn't it? Who's the me?
Yes.
Yeah, and we just go round and round and round in circles. Yeah.
Right.
And he says, in the absence of resistance, we no longer separate ourselves from the universe as an independently existing entity by disliking what's present or seeking what is not present. In fact, in this case, there is no we and the rest of the universe. The universe is a universe, not a multiverse. It's a single, indivisible whole. And that's such a freedom to see that as well, that it's all a movement of the totality. You know, it isn't happening to me. It's
right.
just
It's just happening.
Happening.
Yeah, it's just happening.
Mm-hmm.
And where he says, I like where he uses our likes and our dislikes so many ways in this chapter, because it's really speaking about duality. It's speaking about, and even duality needs to be included also. Even so it's being established as I am, or in the one universe of being, and yet it's also including and allowing the duality of experience to be included, to be welcomed, not to be pushed away or separated as something separate or bad or off.
Yeah.
Well, if we look at page 111, what do you see on page 111 that further supports that idea?
Well, I think to begin at the bottom of page 110, where, you know, he tells us how we set ourselves up as believing ourselves to be a separate entity. Our likes and dislikes and the activity of seeking and resisting which they generate are the mechanism by which we set ourselves up as a separate entity, apart from all others and the world. Prior to the arising of that activity, the current situation is a dance of interrelated elements in which no person or thing stands out with its own separate or independent existence. And then he says at the top of 111, in the ultimate analysis, there are no people or things. Discrete objects are only such from this perspective of us seemingly separate, illusory separate self or ego. When we seek or resist something, when we want something to be different or we resist it, we artificially extract ourselves from the totality. And that's how it happens, isn't it? That's how it happens, is that we believe ourselves to be this character with these preferences and these likes and dislikes, and you're a different one and you've got different likes and dislikes, and so we've broken reality up into these seemingly disparate parts, but it's imaginary. He says it's the imaginary entity through its own activity of liking and disliking. And of course, this is why suffering is our own activity, because we're doing this to ourselves. We're setting ourselves apart from all objects and others. And so then we're in conflict, you know, because I want things my way. So if you don't do things exactly my way, if the whole universe is not exactly my way, then I'm going to be unhappy. And we all know we've done that. We all know we have. I mean, you can open the curtains in the morning and say, it's raining, I need to walk the dog. Something as simple as that.
Yeah, it's true.
It is true, yeah. As a result, it's always in conflict with the universe, a conflict that it cannot win. Such one is destined for frustration and disappointment and inflicts suffering on itself and conflict with others.
Mm-hmm.
Like we go around creating havoc. And you can see that in the world, can't you? You can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody just wanting things their own way on a personal level, on a national level. It's easy to see.
Yeah, and we're looking at suffering as our own activity, as this chapter, and this is giving us the how. How is that occurring?
Yeah.
He says at the very end of that section, the primary distinction between self and other, which is initiated and perpetuated by the activity of seeking and resisting, is the birth of duality. Yeah.
It's the start of them and us, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, in my mind, I spend a lot of time trying to point out duality so that one can be established in the understanding of as awareness, where in the non-dual aspect of understanding, and then go back and include duality. That's where the difference is. And you go back, when you go back and include duality, that's where welcoming is, it seems like it's more available. You're welcoming it from a place that's this open space of awareness. I love the metaphor of the room with the furniture. It just lets all the furniture come in. Come on in. Yeah, go over there. Right there's fine. Clutter, sure, bring the clutter in.
Yeah.
Okay. It says, I put the dissolution of duality is its resolve. Okay, so the primary distinction between the self and other, the dissolution of duality is the resolve, because that's finding, or that's self-realizing, and then you go back and you include it all.
Yeah. And it's, it relates to, he was talking about feelings on page 109, but it's the same thing, isn't it? He said there, be knowingly the aware openness, but ultimately, he said, then the feeling is made of the very awareness. But in what you're saying, everything is made of the very awareness. You go back with that understanding that,
and suffering is stopped too. I mean, suffering doesn't happen there. You've resolved suffering because you've welcomed and included everything.
Yeah.
But from a place of understanding.
No resistance, no suffering.
Right. On page 111, there's a quite a long question. Most of the great, or is that a question or just a statement?
Did I, Bill?
The bottom of page 111, Rupert has a statement here. Most of the great religious and spiritual traditions contain at their origin the understanding that the peace and fulfillment for which all people long lies in the depth of their own being and is equally available to all people at all times and under all circumstances, except in rare cases when the safety or well-being of the body is severely compromised. However, in time, this understanding has to a greater or lesser extent become mixed with the extraneous elements derived either from the local temporal customs of the culture in which the traditions originated, or from misunderstandings that have mystified or complicated a simple and direct approach. Yeah, that would be most of the religious traditions have taken that tact, and that's why we have 20,000 different religions that are all lost. Sorry.
Well, I don't agree they're all lost. I think at their core, I mean, if you take Christianity, for example, the kingdom of heaven is within you. It's saying exactly the same. But as Rupert says, all these traditions and cultural stuff and all of it's been laid on top. It's the same with us, isn't it? It's our true nature is here right now. The truth is here right now, but we've overlaid it with all our beliefs. The truth is at the heart of, I can't say all because I don't know every religion, but in the major religions, the truth is there, but it's been overlaid and covered by man-made stuff.
Yeah. Or fundamentalism. I mean, in that radio broadcast I had with Rupert, he talks about Ramana fundamentalists, I've talked about A Course in Miracles fundamentalists, or Vedantic, Advaita fundamentalists, or whatever. It can get lost. All of these things can get lost in the because the ego wants to grab a hold of these ideas and wake up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I love that phrase that everything is a finger pointing at the moon. The minute you think it's the moon, you've become a fundamentalist. The minute your path is the moon, then it's a really easy way to see, isn't it? Because we do all. I mean, even Rupert, he's a finger pointing at the moon. Everybody, they're all fingers pointing at the moon. They're not the moon.
Yes. So on page, let's go to 112.
Yeah. So devoid of this understanding, that the understanding was that peace and happiness is here now, available to everybody all the time. Our world culture can only offer temporary distraction from uncomfortable feelings. And again, we can see that really clearly in society, can't we? Through the acquisition of objects. Buy this lovely new BMW and be happy forever. Substances. Take this marijuana. This will make you feel good. Activities. I don't know, go to the gym, feel great. States of mind, even meditation, if you're meditating to get some state of mind, it then just becomes a tool that the ego's using to get what it wants. And relationships, obviously, how many husbands have we had? How many wives have we had, Bill?
Or wives, yes. Yes.
It's true though, isn't it? We just, as soon as an object, substance, activity, or so on is worn off or come to an end, the underlying suffering surfaces again, compounding the cycle of suffering, seeking and avoidance is the basis of all addiction. And that's, that's pure kind of Four Noble Truths from Buddhism. There is suffering, there's a cause for suffering, there's a path out of suffering, and it's available. So.
Yeah.
I love this little anecdote about the lady on the plane having an obese woman having a snack, and she said to him, the more I eat, the better I feel. And I loved what he said there. Little did she know that the smile I gave her was not only in response to the succinctness with which she expressed the very syndrome about which I was currently writing, but more importantly contained a prayer that one day a pause might open up in her cycle of lack, avoidance, and fleeting fulfillment, in which the background of peace for which she longed would make itself known for her. That's beautiful, isn't it? That's beautiful.
Yeah, without judgment. I mean, there was a distinction there, because he knew what she was saying was not true.
Yeah.
He knew that underneath her happiness underneath the desire for happiness was her true happiness.
Yeah. It's looking in the wrong place.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's most all of us. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I like at the bottom of page 112 where Rupert invites us to imagine the freedom of leading a life in which we know that our happiness is not dependent on anyone or anything. That's, it's not hard to imagine that. That's an easy imagination. But once you have an understanding that that awareness is, and it establishes the permanence of truth or love or beingness without opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet, if you don't have that understanding, it's very difficult to believe that assertion that happiness is not dependent on anyone or anything, because it is absolutely counter to our whole culture. If you say that to the average man in the street, they'd go, "You're crazy. What are you talking about? My happiness depends on X, Y, and Z." We all have a wee list until we realize what you've just said.
Well, even having this understanding, if I'm getting something new, like a new little tractor or a new this or that, there's a little excitement underneath that can't wait.
Get a new John Deere.
Can't wait to have it, But even that is seen. That is seen from a new place of understanding. That Bill the bodysuit, look at that, how excited he's for this little green machine that just has an engine in it,
Yeah.
Funny. It's true though.
Yeah.
And yet it's
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, though, is there?
No, there's nothing wrong with it.
No.
There's totally, because it's also seen by something that is untouched by the experience. And for me, I'm grateful to see that energy. There's some energy on this receiving this little green John Deere experience for Bill the bodysuit. Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah. I like I just want to go back to the paragraph before that, because it's just so clear, and it's a real, ask yourself, like, am I willing? Each of us is faced with a simple choice at every moment to embrace our current circumstance and respond to it from that position of openness, or to view the situation through the filter of our past conditioning and reject it on that basis. If we welcome whatever we're currently experiencing, the state of our health, the behavior of our partner, colleague, parent, or child, or the unfolding of events in the world, the same happiness that we would feel in winning the lottery will be released in our current experience.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet. I'm going to be totally honest. I'm not there. Absolutely not there. When I got viral conjunctivitis 3 days before my son's wedding, there was not the happiness that would be the same as winning the lottery released in my experience. That absolutely was not. I had a reaction to that.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
And yet that was seen. That was seen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And it's still, Susan still wants to look nice, clearly. That's the part of the conditioning. Susan enjoyed all the compliments at the wedding, So yeah, I've seen that.
Funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right there, and you get to look at it. So that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It on the next page. Thank you for adding that, because I skipped over that. That was a good experience for us to be able to sort of relook at all of those different symptoms or activities.
Yeah. If anyone has a question, if anybody has posted a question already, can you post it again, please? Because the chat has really, really gone on since the last time we checked.
I've been looking. I don't see any standout questions.
Okay.
Yada has a little commented. Yada, you're busy today. Almost dying did it for me. I wake up every day and remind me, and all the rest I want, even supposed to be here, might as well be, happy. Yes. Yeah. Well, when you can choose happiness just by being yourself, I mean, that makes sense. What about this next, this
Yeah. Jason, we're on
Shant?
156 now on the Kindle.
Okay, and
And
113.
113 in the paperback.
Yeah. And he has this story about Shantananda Saraswati used to tell a story about Krishna and his companion on a journey. I didn't get Krishna's motives for making the wealthy guy more wealthy or the poor guy more poor. I mean, I understood that he was giving them more of what they had, and the second one, the farmer that was super nice, he took away his cow, but I didn't understand the motives behind those.
Well, I think it was because all the poor man had was the cow. He only had one remaining attachment. And so by taking that attachment away, he had an opportunity for causeless joy, as Rupert put it. Whereas the rich man had a whole load of stuff. So it would take him ages to release all the attachments.
So he gave him more?
So
yeah, I don't know. Didn't make any sense to me.
Can we go back to the paragraph above that before Bill? Because I think there was quite a bit in that.
Okay.
He says, almost all psychological suffering is the activity of seeking and resisting that is triggered by our deeply ingrained tendencies. It is as such our own activity. That's the explanation as to why suffering is our own activity. And it's really interesting that he has the activity of seeking as well as resisting. It's not just resisting what is, it's seeking too. And I thought it's interesting to ask yourself, to what extent is your spiritual seeking a manifestation of that and actually leading to more psychological suffering?
That is a good one. That's a really good question.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. The seeking part is that was what inspired the End of Seeking conference that's coming up.
Yes.
Because the seeking part is the subtle seeking to awaken or to know the self or to whatever kind of reason that one might have to be on the spiritual path. It's all initiated by the seeming separate self, which is a good thing, but at some point you have to let that go. You have to let that go too.
Somebody said, can't remember the quote, but somebody said the very self that begins the search has to be annihilated. Somebody will know that quote, I'm sure.
I think Ramana said that.
Was it?
Yeah, I think Ramana Maharshi said that. Yeah.
Yeah.
In different words, but that's a paraphrase for him.
Yeah.
Kim Last says the objects of the first host equate to suffering, and so doubting them, doubling them is a punishment, equating to double the suffering. It is an interesting story for sure, in that it wakes me up to my preconceptions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I just don't know why Krishna would do that.
Punish him.
Yeah, I just don't know why Krishna would do that. That's what I didn't understand. Why would a sage? Why would a sage do that?
Mm-hmm.
That didn't make sense to me. Okay.
William's just put his hand up. Do you want to come on, William?
William? Hey, William.
Hi, Bill. Hi, Susan.
Hey.
Yeah, Jesus says in the New Testament that he gave a rich man more riches. And and a poor man, he took away what little he had. It's exactly the same idea that in the Krishna parable by Sarasvati.
Okay. Okay. So that's sort of like the blessed is he that is poor, as he will, or she will inherit the kingdom of heaven. So,
No, not in the Beatitudes.
yeah.
It's where he's the rich will get more and the poor will get less, and he's being self-contradictory in order to make the point that that the extra wealth given to the wealthy man will actually be a punishment,
Right.
because he'll have more ego burden.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It's the same story.
Right.
Anyway, thank you for
Yeah.
letting
Thank you. Well, we have come to the end of our time already. It's
What?
1:16. Yes. Yes. I know. And
Oops.
we're going to end it right there. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us. And thank you, Susan, for co-hosting. I think it's 1:16. We're
Oh
past
my goodness.
the 15-minute mark. Well,
This is
next
becoming
week,
a habit, me not finishing chapters.
we'll look at chapter 15 next week, The Way of Surrender. Rana will be our co-host. Thank you all for being here today. And thank you, Susan, for your awesome co-hosting. And I like how you keep taking us back to look at the chapters, the different important pages, because you're pointing out some key points. And yes, we didn't finish, but we'll carry on and pick it up next week. Thanks, everyone, for being
Is there
here.
a way to access the recording?
Yeah, it will be sent to you in email. If you registered for this, you'll get an email that will have the recording link for
Thank
sure.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome. We'll see everyone.